Friends, we have arrived. Second installment of my Sephora Spring Savings Event Haul, the online order edition. And I quickly posted on my YouTube shorts like a quick and dirty first impressions of those products. And in this video, we will take a closer look at these picks as well as their swatches, demos, not all the demos because I want to now grab more content from these products, zeroing in on the YSL mini clutch quads as well as the Prada Beauty ones, and maybe just do more with what I bought. That is the plan, in addition to major comparisons such as comparing the Givenchy Prism Libra pressed powder with the Prada Beauty Reset Rebalancing powder. One that I'm interested in diving deeper into because they have the same role but their textures are just so different, and I think it interesting to dissect those differences. But today I just wanted to quickly go over what was in my online purchase Sephora box, and why don't we start off with my YSL mini clutch quad in Over Noir. I was crushed. I think it was last year. Yves Saint Laurent runs like a major Black Friday sale every year. I don't know if they do one earlier in the year, but they were running, I think, upwards of 30% off, and unfortunately Over Noir was sold out, and I had my eye on it because I just thought these smoky shades were utterly perfect in achieving the most effortless smoky eye, because I am well acquainted with the YSL quads, and let me know if you want a deeper dive video in just exploring the textures from the mini clutch lineup, because I think it interesting that YSL Beauty has their own formula and breakdown for their shadows. But let's start off with what's categorized as a metallic pop, this beautiful silvery overlay shade, and you can see how soft the texture is, ideal if placed on a stickier consistency on the lid. And I'm thinking Pat McGrath's Intensifies one or some sort of glitter glue formula that's going to help grab these particles. Flakies? I can't think of the word, powder pearls. Next, we have the satin base, which is a nude-like beige consistency on the cooler side, but you can see that sheen left behind and how wonderful it could be just across the lid as a starting point for your smokier looks. Satin Define, and the shadow I was most excited about because I can't pass up a metallic charcoal, and that's exactly what we have here. I could imagine just beautifully just diffused on the lid where you don't need any other shadow except this one and done, ready to go. And lastly, we have Matte Define, what looks to be, as the name implies, a matte, but look at that. A lot more softer than Prada Beauty's Hyper Matte, which I also have a short tutorial using Profusion, and I could quickly show you here. This Hyper Matte formula is a lot tighter and creamier. It's almost like a hybrid, whereas the YSL Beauty powder is a, I think, more traditionally formulated powder eyeshadow that's easier to pick up and softer on the blend. So I'm thinking a softer brush, not a stiff one, because I think that would just eat the product. But we could go into more detail when I work on that individual video. But isn't this just simple glam? I adore it. And why don't we continue with the Prada Beauty Eye Quad in Profusion. Just a stunning array of shades that I think different from your typically curated smoky palette, with the inclusion of this chartreuse, which is considered to be their soft matte formula. So not as tight and thick as their Hyper Matte, but a lot more softer, almost like a fabric of color, which allows the user control in regards to the intensity and the blend and the effect it has on the eyes. In the middle here, we have the satin shade, which is like a silver gray, beautiful texture, very much soft on the blend. It has just like I had described the soft matte, like a fabric-like consistency that has a sheen, not overly shiny like their metallic. Their metal foil is outrageous. Why don't we just go to the metal foil? Because my goodness, when it comes to Prada Beauty's metal foil, for a luxury brand, that ain't bad. And lastly, we have the Hyper Matte, and the Hyper Matte formula usually rests here on the top of the pan, reserved for, again, as I had described, this almost like a cream to powder hybrid, but you can see just the difference in consistency. You see how the powders appear tighter, the particles, whereas there's just a softer flow of pigment found in the Yves Saint Laurent mini clutch quad. I think it's interesting. And I wanted to quickly, while we're here, swatch Pulp. Pulp, I think, in person, a lot more beautiful, because online it just seems like your basic array of soft shades, but I think in person it kind of opens the door to, like, you know, the rosewood looks with not only this hyper matte shade, but now with this metal foil. Oh, I can't wait to swatch this one. I'll start with the satin shade. It's like an apricot, which I think beautiful. You see that sheen finish that I think would just look lovely across the lid. Next, we have this soft matte color, which is almost like a wine. And could also possibly be used as blush. Might be challenging considering the size of the pan. I will have to use a small blush brush, but you know, we could experiment. Up next, we have the metal foil, this gorgeous rose gold. I know we've seen the rose golds before in a variety of ways, nuanced undertones and reflective finishes, but you can't go wrong when it's this solid. You know what I mean? And lastly, we have the Hyper Matte, which is this rosy peachy brown. You know how I feel about these types of tones. I can't get enough. I could just envision this as well as the satin apricot all over the lid if I wanted a smokier haze effect without the depth. And I think this is something I would use that color for. And why not? Let's just finish this eyeshadow brigade with Charlotte's Beautifying Eye Trends palette in Sensual Sunset. It was this shade right here. When I saw these in store at Sephora and I swatched it, blown away. I was blown away by how shiny this texture was, and just the edit, the color edit. I would say, ooh, another video idea. We definitely can compare this to Natasha Denona's bronze palette. This to me is like an edited bronze, since the tones are similar and the overall vibe with however way you cocktail these shades, I think very much reminds me of Natasha's bronze palette. But just to quickly go through these swatches, across the row we go. We have this soft beige, we have this sparkly arcly, specifically the crystal chrome, my apologies, Charlotte, and this almost caramel leaning orange matte brown. Dark brown matte, like a burgundy, what they call the molten satin, and the wine colored matte. This one here, it has like a toastier look on the eyes, and I think maybe at this point, I'm not entirely sure, I would have edited my short using this palette. I like this color all over the eyes because it just gives beautiful haze. Lastly, we have Crystal Pop, this toasted terracotta matte. I guess that's more like a burgundy actually. Ooh, so pretty. My apologies, that was Diamond Dimension. This right here is the Crystal Pop. What a phenomenal texture. I adore these palettes because of the array of different finishes that are fairly easy to pick up and apply on the lids, and the effects they leave behind are just extraordinary. There's twinkle, there's shine, it looks wet on the lids, and again, you can't go wrong with these tones. You can make it as vibrant as you want, sticking with the burgundy kind of like terracotta hues here, or you can head over to the more bronzy hues that I still feel fairly easygoing, but if you want still that shine, you could grab it right here. I'm just trying to think, what should I use for the look in this video, and I'm having a hard time deciding. Because I already used Profusion and Sensual Sunset, I'll probably use Pulp just so that we could get into it, and then I will definitely dive in to Over Noir when I compare it to Burberry Beauty's 04 Midnight Quad. We gotta go into the Isamaya Skin Enhancing Duos. I already own Nectar Nectarine. This is the first duo I purchased, and I expressed my frustration in how the product image was not consistent with the product itself. The Nectarine photo does not look like Nectarine on the site. And then I decided to get Capricorn. And I would even say Capricorn looks more red brown in person than it does online. Something I also wish Isamaya would do or did for her skin enhancing duos was to consider refills, because there are a few duos that I have my eye on, but what's holding me back is that I don't want more of these compacts. They're fairly big, and who knows, maybe Isamaya thought about that and decided not to go that route because it would be more expensive. But it would have been great not only if the consumer could choose the blush but the highlighters. So I would have settled on the entire pan, but ooh, that would have been great if we could choose blush or highlight. Let's swatch Capricorn now. And if you're not familiar with the skin enhancing duo blush texture, you can see how glassy it is, how slick it is. Nice payoff considering the consistency. Not like Victoria Beckham Beauty's Miniskirt, which, by the way, why don't we just swatch that now, because Miniskirt is described to be a berry shade, and I think it interesting that Capricorn is described to be mid-brown. That, Alicia, are you okay? So you see that Miniskirt from VBB is a little muted, and there's a lot more, almost like a coral red vibe to Isamaya's Capricorn. And I'll quickly swatch Nectarine next to these berry tones. Nectarine is exactly what the name implies. Would be great with Saie's Supersuede in Ciao. Ooh, because now having the powder on top of this cream product will not only enhance the color, but will also help with the longevity on the skin. And I know I'm running out of arm space, is nearly time for a wipe down, but I wanted to quickly swatch the highlight shade from the Capricorn. So the duo right here is what comes in the compact. And again, I do like the skin enhancing duos, and I actually had my eye on Martha. Martha was like that soft pink shade that I know might not work out on my skin tone, but there was something so ethereal about it, especially when I saw it on the model's face, that I figured it could be a thing. But again, wish that the pans were interchangeable, like they were magnetic, where we could just buy the insert and not the entire compact if we wanted another colorway. I still got some arm space here on my left, so I wanted to now quickly show the Supersuede blush from Saie in Ciao, which is described to be like a golden brown. And this color, I can't get enough. Just slap it all over my face, center of my face, and I thought this would be a great time. Well, you know what? Let me grab Organza Cien. I'll first swatch Givenchy's Prism Libre Loose Powder in number 3, which is described to be a coral orange. So that's a lot more pinky coral than the more muted tone from the Saie. And now Organza Cien, you see that is definitely even more muted than Ciao. This is more of like a brown coral. It's described to be a woody orange, which what I had spoke about in my first Sephora haul video, the in-store edition, where woody kind of implies muted, more earthy in tone. Danessa's Blurring Balm Flushed in Spice Latte. Definitely within the realm of what we're swatching here, right? So this is giving a little more red than Ciao, but I think would pair beautifully with any of these, right, as the setup bronzer shade. And if you wanted a little more vibrancy on the center of the face, I could go in with number 3 from the Givenchy, or the number 4, or Ciao. And allow me, I failed to do so, swatch Saie's, the first one I purchased, Grazie, which is described to be a bright berry. So here I think they pair beautifully well together. But I had mentioned in my first Sephora video that Bright Berry, a shade for my complexion, best applied higher on my cheeks, where I start the blend on the hollows and then I'll bring it down so it's more faded from up to low, versus starting here on the center. It could look a little bruisey, but because of the more red leaning undertone for Grazie, I don't think I could run into that problem, but I'm still careful nonetheless. And lastly, Valentino's Liquirosse blush and lip, which is more of like a moussier texture. You see how it's tighter and more lightweight. And my apologies, I think there might be a shade description for, let me see here. It's described to be a cool deep nude, 151R nude in motion. So yeah, this is on like the cooler side, I guess, for me, but not so cool that it looks drab on my complexion. You know what I mean? Now that we've gone through the swatches and the B-roll, it's time to commence this online order haul makeup look. And that means you got to come in a little closer. I want to start off with Saie's Supersuede blush because I adore this color, and again, I don't mind applying this on the center of my face first, just to kind of invoke that flushed look on the cheeks. And again, this is a non-talc baked powder formula with a little bit of sheen. It's not completely matte, so if you're not a fan of super matte blushes such as, which I don't own, the Tower 28, or I think it's the Rare Beauty, it had like a moussey texture when I swatched it in store. This is going to have more of like a skin-like satin finish on the blend, and I think fantastic for drier skin types, especially if they're not particularly fond of powder products, because whether it's talc-free or whatever formula it is, a powder is significantly drier than a liquid or cream. So if you tend not to grab powders, but you were thinking maybe the Saie could work, just saying, it's a winner. And for the bronzer, I quickly wanted to mention a great comparison someone made in my Sephora video. They had said if you own the Glossier Cloud Paint, the bronzer Cloud Paint, specifically Seamless Cheek Color in Swept, it does resemble, I think, the color more than the Westman Atelier bronzer drop consistency. The bronzer drops are more liquidy, as you can see, versus the Cloud Paint is more creamy. See how it doesn't drip, but you can detect that the undertones are similar. The Westman Atelier, by the way, that was in Soleil Parfait number 3 dark tan, is a little darker than the Glossier. Maybe. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell, but thank you. My apologies for not grabbing their username at the time of reading the comment. I think it's a great alternative. If you like the bronzing drop concept and you can dig a bronzing liquid, but you're not down with the Westman Atelier price, I don't blame you. That's why I got this during the sale. Then definitely look into the Glossier. The Glossier is a solid product, and they have more shades available in that lineup versus the Glossier. And to not waste product, family, I'm just gonna combine both of them and just work them on my forearm first, and then lightly go in to the hollows, combining it with Ciao, because why not, since we had the bronzer on the arm. And I'm just being careful to not apply a ton because I don't want it to appear muddy on the skin, but I think we're okay. Definitely if you wanted to add a little bit of that tan effect, although the cheek color, I don't know if it gives me a tan effect more so than it gives me more of a contoured effect, but I'll explore it further on another time. I just need to see Pulp in action. We got to do it. I don't have a primer. Do I? No, I don't. Yes, I do. I'm going in with my Suku primer because my Pat McGrath one finished. The Suku primer is wet, so probably a good idea that I wait for it to set a little bit before going in with these powders. But we can, while we wait, apply a little bit of highlight. And why not? I'll go in with the highlight side of the Skin Enhancing Duo because I think it's quite beautiful. It might look sticky, but it's just super glassy and it has a wet effect on the skin. And if you have like another powder formula on standby from your highlighter collection, it is a great setup texture to maybe dab on the Christian Dior, for instance. Do I have the Christian Dior? Of course I don't. Let me go get it. If you wanted to really bling it up, you see what I'm saying? This is fantastic for that purpose, because powder highlighter can be tricky since it is placed, for me anyway, on a more textured part of my skin. But if you have a little help in kind of grabbing the powder in a smoother way, there you go. And that, I think, left ample time for the Suku primer to set. And I just have to go in with this color first. I want it to show in like this washed out effect type of a way, because I think it's so just lovely. Yes. All over the lid, through the crease, and purposefully using my Refer Shoto number 4 brush, because its construction allows just an airlight whipped quality about the blend, where it looks far more diffused than what a denser eyeshadow blender brush would leave behind. And I'm taking this under the lash line as well, because I think I want it to appear super blown out. Now I can go in with the apricot shade, but I think I'm just making this ultra simple and using the rose gold and applying it with my finger. And look at that adherence. It just applies smoothly on top of the soft matte formula. And my goodness, I'm thrilled. I also wanted to see how the satin apricot shade would appear or serve as a highlight. It might be a little too dark for me, but who knows? Maybe, let's see. I'm tapping it here on the inner corner. It does offer a little bit of brightness. I think you can see a highlight effect, largely due to the satin finish of the formula, right? So you see that just more like demi-reflectivity happening on the lid, or in the corner, I should say. What's happening? I don't know what's happening. But now I want to take that same apricot all over the lid, because I think this a fantastic way. You see how it's like a warm beige? A great opportunity to now just draw perhaps a liner. Ooh, maybe we could go in with cinnamon from Vicky. Stop it right now. I think that'll be a great idea, actually. Yes. Now going in with the hyper matte, and for this, instead of using like a wispier brush like I did for this side, I'm using now a denser blender. This is the Sonia G, specifically Kakishibu T4 blender brush, as I purposely want to pick up more of this rose brown to create a smokier bracket here on the outer lid. And I appreciate how it's not overly smoky. For instance, the Hollow Nude quads, the number 9 Primula has like that richer red brown, and number 8, I think, not Pansy. What was number 8? That was more of like a reddish rose, but I love this tone through the crease. I'm taking that on the lower lash line as well. And now we can see what the rose gold metal foil is going to appear as on the inner corner. So it has a shinier effect than the satin, but I like it there. I definitely like it on the inner corner. Now hopping into my VBB bag, because I need to know what cinnamon can do. And should I sharpen this? Probably. I want to take cinnamon here on the lash line for the first eye. And I'm not entirely sure if I want to do like a dedicated wing or more like a diffuse type of a thing. And thank you to the suggestions in trying to better navigate the satin kajal liner from Victoria Beckham Beauty. They had recommended that you let the pencil set a little bit before going in on the blend, because they are super soft and there is more time than your typically formulated pencil to play with, where you will have the opportunity to blend it out. It won't kind of set hard and you'll have a tougher time maneuvering it. So that's side number one. And I think perhaps for our first eye, I'll go in with Cocoa. Something more defining to create a little bit of contrast there. But the question is, do I want to flick it out? I mean, I took Cinnamon way out. Further out than what I originally intended. But it's fine. It's not too bad. I mean, whatever. For Cocoa, I think I want to be a little more careful with the flick, as in keeping it closer to my lash line, like a kitten flick, and not it get out of hand. You know what I mean? I could also use Prada Liner's Wood, which, you know, for brand consistency's sake, but I just wanted an opportunity, another one. There will be several because these liners were not cheap. To use the Satin Kajal liners again, the Cocoa color from VBB is a little more neutral than Prada Liner's Wood. Wood is more like a true neutral brown, and I think would have been lovely with Pulp, but you know, another time. I said I wasn't gonna flick it out that much, but here we are. Now, in terms of the lipstick, I could do the Givenchy, but I feel, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to apply Geisha. Geisha, the color for the Isamaya Beauty lip liner. Look at that color. I think it is so unique. And I said in my first impression short that I wanted to compare it to VBB's Lip Definer in 4. 4 has a little more rose and Geisha a little more brown. So that means I would like to try Geisha now. And now Gucci's Glow and Care lipstick in 113 Lynette Stone. And just for the sake of easier removal post video, I will usually on a normal day apply Prada Sculpt's mascara, but I'll apply it lashes instead, and then I'll be right back with the final look. And here are the final looks using some of my recent Sephora haul picks, and I couldn't be happier. What I appreciate most about this process, because I know it does seem like I just spent a lot of money, which I did, but I didn't buy anything until like a week and a half out from when the sale began. I had quite a few of the items sit in my basket, thought about it, and I made sure to make choices that made sense for my collection and what I personally love to use. Yes, I do consider myself a makeup reviewer, but I'm buying stuff that I'm interested in and not just buying it because it's new, because it just released. I ignored the Tower 28. I didn't get the Rare Beauty. I didn't get a few things that released during the sale. I bought the things that I was most enamored by and interested in as a makeup enthusiast, and then I wanted to bring that to you if you had your eyes on these products. I know the sale is over, but in case that the individual brands have a promotion coming up during the spring summer season or whatnot, I just love to dive deeper into the newer additions to our collections. And again, as I mentioned throughout the video, tons of ideas that are starting to brew in regards to the different content that I want to produce now using these new makeup items. The Prada Beauty Quad deeper dive, the YSL Mini Clutch deeper dive, the comparisons between the different textures and whatnot. Like for instance, the Valentino Liquirosse. Unlike any liquid type of texture I've ever tried for blush, out of all the blush products that I recently purchased, definitely the lightest weight. It almost has like a cloudy-like consistency about it that I found I had to build up quite a bit when you saw the demo earlier in the video. But I thought that interesting, and even though yes, it's perfumey because it's Valentino, I forgive it because I think it a fantastic shade to throw on lips and cheeks and just kind of have the complexion run its course from there, where it looks a little livelier, it doesn't look dull, it doesn't look bleh, you know what I mean? And Geisha, the lip liner from Isamaya Beauty, I know it might not be the most standout color, but I think it's quite unique to have a warmer brown that doesn't look orange or red. I think it's like right in still the brown category, but the undertone is unique. And listen, I know there are a lot of hit and misses in Isamaya's release, but her lip liners, I think, have by far one of the most broadest and interesting undertones and colors available. I mean, I forgot how many in all, maybe like 10, maybe more than 10 actually, from lightest to darkest, but interesting undertones and shades. And what I had said about Liberica will make Gucci's Glowing Care lipstick, Lynette Stone, look far more cooler than Gesha. Gesha puts it more in like the warmer neutral category, where Liberica will totally grunge it up with that grayish brown tone to the color. So that's why I think these lip liners are interesting. And the Prada shadows, listen, I know people will not be impressed by the Prada shadows because they're not going to give indie reflective high shine, right? Not even what exists in Mother's motherships, especially her older motherships. That's why I think it's important to understand the brand you're purchasing from, to understand their intention and the point to their formulations. Prada Beauty, to my understanding, is more about the skin care technology and just the more skin forward approach they take, not only to their skincare line, but they push the boundaries in terms of how much of that skincare technology they could put in their makeup and have their color cosmetics still be high performing. So it's going to be a lot cleaner, a lot more streamlined. It's not going to be about the finish, but more so what these powders can do to your lids, right? When you see the product page on either Prada Beauty or Sephora, wherever Prada Beauty is sold, they boast the ingredients in these eyeshadows being, you know, anti-aging and all these different whatevers. And I don't believe that, but that's where their focus is. That's definitely where they have their grip on, and maybe why they're not going to put as much in making multi-chrome like finishes. But we saw in their recent Hollow Nude release that they included duochromes in their quads, and that was a nice surprise. The number 7, I think, was definitely the weakest duochrome out of the 3, but nice to see Prada kind of push the envelope in their eyeshadow category, and who knows what they'll release next. Recently they had their liners, so listen, I know it's not going to be for everyone, Prada Beauty for that matter, but I adore it. They're one of my most favorite luxury brands, and hopefully I made the case why in this video and in several others that I spoke about them in. Let me know if you've been enjoying your Sephora purchases, and please feel free to leave suggestions down below. We are a community, and I'll be happy to produce any type of content you want to see, going back into older palettes as I had suggested earlier, comparing Bronze to Charlotte's Sensual Sunset, and whatever else you want to suggest, let me know down below. And if you made it this far, make sure you like this video. Clicking that thumbs up helps me immensely. It tells the YouTube algorithm I'm worth watching, and consider subscribing. Listen, I got a lot of ideas on deck, and you would only know when those videos drop if you click the notification bell, because you'll be alerted of that upload immediately. You saw how I featured a few of Victoria Beckham Beauty's products, but if you want to see my full-on unboxing and first try-on haul video, I'll make sure to leave it here. I'll see you in that video, down in the comments for this video, and on here again next time.